Hi, Erica.
Hello, good evening.
Oh, I forgot to put these on.
Oh yeah,
It's like
I'm
prime
not
time.
wearing mine. Hopefully it'll work
Oh,
out. There's the beautiful lady. Hi, Batsheva.
Hi, good evening.
so excited to have you both. Well, welcome everybody to this Faces of Orthodoxy live. This we haven't done in a long time. We've done lives with one subject and a guest, but I think maybe like a year ago we had a live with two subjects. So this has been a long time coming to have both of you here together. Our lives give our followers of Faces of Orthodoxy opportunity to meet our guests up close and personal. Both of you have just done, it sounds so ridiculous when I use this language. You've both done amazingly on the account. But this is the truth. Both of your stories have been so compelling, so personal, have given, you see the comments, so much strength to people. So Erica, you came on first. First of all, just please introduce yourself. Please tell me, I know you both know each other. Let's start with that.
Okay, so hi, I'm Erika Needleman. Just want to say hi to Elena. Thank you. We love you too. So I am a life coach. I'm also a Torah educator, thanks to Batsheva and her amazing partner, Julie Silverman. As I started my coaching practice and I was putting things up online, and having the social media presence, I got a call from them and they said, we love what you're doing and this is what we do and this is what we're all about and we want you to join. And so I was so very honored because they are incredibly picky. For who gets to
They're
come into this
incredibly
very, very special.
discerning. I'm sure they're
Yeah,
incredibly discerning, not
yes,
picky.
you're exactly. That was the total wrong word. Oh my gosh, 100%. They have very high standards, and so I was very honored to be, invited to be a part of it. So,
So nice.
so we work
Wow.
together with JWC, which Batsheva will tell you so much more about, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Okay, so Batsheva, in case somebody did not read your story, you're a new face. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh,
Just
wow.
you can introduce yourself without telling
I'm
us your
Batsheva
story
Gelbtuch.
again. Okay, gotcha, got it. And Batsheva, what was it like being featured on the couch? Tell us just like a little bit from your experience.
So, wow. Lots of experiences, lots of feelings. So I will say, I don't like labels in general. So being featured on anything that has a label attached to it is something that is, as we spoke about this, Alex. So I'm
Yeah,
not going to veer off topic, but it's been a fascinating week.
I'm sure it has. What is it like? And Erika, maybe you could speak to this. Like, it's a very vulnerable experience putting your story out there. What's it like when you read people's comments in response to your story? And I'd love to hear both of your comments on that. But Erika, go ahead.
So I had a few people reach out to me specifically saying, especially after my video, after the reel,
Which went
um,
like basically viral for Faces of
Hashem,
Orthodoxy standards.
I'm so glad. It was, you want to know why? It was such a good question, Alex. You gave me the
Okay.
exact perfect question, and it's, is Judaism a spiritual religion? And I grew up not believing Judaism was spiritual. And the shift that happened for me when I became religious and why I became religious was because I found out, oh my gosh, it is,
Mm.
right? And so a lot of the feedback that I got, especially on the DMs, and like in those personal messages, was, I grew up in the yeshiva system and I didn't know it was spiritual. Can you tell me what that's like for you? Because I never got. To me, is so heartbreaking. Right? So that people are brought up with all 613 mitzvos, but like without that inner spark and without that connectedness to it. So that was something I was so happy people were reaching out, because people desire that. People want to have a spiritual relationship with Hashem, not just a physical one, right? And so that was very special, like someone who is on her journey and not keeping mitzvos, called me up and said, hey, can we get coffee? I really connect to your story and
Wow.
I want to talk to you about what it was like for you and get some tips, and if you can share with me what this whole experience was like for you, because I feel like I'm on my own journey. So that was like the best. That was the best thing that happened out of the whole thing, was that amazing coffee that I had with that wonderful woman. And I also I really do love sharing my story. It's so funny because when I was recently, like when I had just become religious, there was a couple that referred to me as the girl who loves her story.
That's cute.
Because I was like so obsessed with this idea that like all of these crazy things happened to me to get me to where I am today.
Huh, fascinating.
You know, I think all of us have that, but some of us, you know, don't realize where our story has taken us, and some of us have a story that's negative. Some of us have a story that like doesn't have that happy ending. But one of the things that I do as a coach is really to help people see the other side of the story, see those parts that maybe we weren't paying attention to, that we said like, oh, that's a fluke, or oh, that part wasn't as important, and this is me and this is not me, right? And so like how we portray our stories to ourselves. So I think that has been something I've really learned a lot about this week. So
Amazing. And Batsheva, I think it's interesting with your post, and then we're going to get to the crux of our discussion, but there's so many women that you teach and that you work with who were commenting, who know and love you. I'm so curious, because I know as a teacher, sometimes maybe in the line of work that you do and the ages that you, or the clientele that you teach, but I taught middle school and high school. And like, I think adult education must be different, but how often do you get feedback from your students like that? That must have been really, really an interesting experience.
So yeah, no, I would say like when you ask the common question, I mean, like the love that you get, like in general, I feel like, you know, people have a lot of negative things to say about the internet, or not the internet, the social media, like aspects of things and comments. In general, it's like there's so much positive that happens there, and the feedback was wonderful. And I love that social media gets used oftentimes, especially in our community, in our organization. I see it a lot. This lifting each other up, you know, this supporting each other. And you see it on birthdays. I mean, it's such a silly like thing, but you see it so beautifully like displayed that way. So this was sort of a birthday, I guess.
Oh.
It was lovely.
Right, but it's like, but I want you to know, on your birthday, Batsheva and Julie, oh my gosh, the things they wrote to me on my wall, it was like unbelievable. Like, these ladies take birthdays very seriously, and they like really share their memories and like how much they support you and love you. Like, Julie and Batsheva are these type of people who literally just lift each other up wherever they go, and that is why they are running such a successful, you know, beautiful program here in Atlanta, because of their real, true love and appreciation for people.
Beautiful. You can't fake that. Like, it just comes across.
You cannot.
Thank you. Like your community also, Alex, that you built over there in the internet or whatever, in that cyber world. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And the comments were really lovely and supporting and so full of, you know, compassion. There's really kindness. Yeah.
And I would love to give a shout out to our followers and for the people who have commented and liked and who shared. I mean, when we started this project, you know, or about almost a year and a half ago, I for sure thought this was going to get hijacked by the haters. You know, like, you put something positive out on cynical social media, good luck to you. And I'm so grateful for exactly what you said about this community, the cheerleading that's going on here, the positivity, the recognition, the acknowledgement has blown my mind. So, all right. So today we're talking about this idea, and you taught it to me, Erika, this idea of unity without uniformity. Can you tell me what this means? And we're going to discuss to each of you, what does this idea of unity without uniformity mean? So Erika, go for it.
Okay. So first of all, I taught you, Alex, but Batsheva taught me. Well,
No,
it was momentum. It was momentum.
Well, no, this is a concept actually discussed with Aristotle. Discusses it like this is like as old as philosophy. Yeah.
So maybe
it's a deep concept. No, go ahead.
It goes way back.
By all means.
It goes
it's
way back.
It's
okay, Batsheva, you take this one.
I have to, but you know, the truth is, I don't know who originated with like this. Actually, I do know who originated with this idea, Hashem. But the discussion about unity without uniformity, like when I learned about it first, it was from, you know, the perspective of Aristotle and Plato, like their discussion, like their Aristotle's commentary on Plato or what have you, this idea that in nature, actually, you find, you know, order or what have you, but you don't find uniformity, you know, and that the beauty, like, aspects come from that. And then, you know, later on, you know, in philosophy, there's, you know, what's his name? Of course, my mind is blanking, but I think in the 1600s or what have you, he was a philosopher in England, name escaping me, but he spoke about like this idea that, you know, valuing each human comes from this deep idea of that we're all to our same connected and the same, and yet we manifest in such different ways, and that's what gets celebrated, and then et cetera, et cetera. So it's a beautiful idea. It happens to be one of the values, as Erika mentioned over here, and it's a beautiful value, definitely. Definitely goes to the core of Judaism.
I love the example that you gave in terms of nature. When you look at flowers or snowflakes, there's no uniformity. Say again?
So Aristotle gave, like, that's where he examined this concept. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Batsheva, this was a huge theme of your story. You know, the lesson that you learned from your father in terms of embracing the diversity you talk so much about. And what I love about your story is one might think, oh, you know, this family growing up in, you know, Haredi and Yerushalayim, you know, in the middle of Israel, and, you know, there's such an emphasis on conformity, but you yourself and your father, and, you know, you're a living example of that was not the values that you were raised with. So what does this really mean to you in terms of how we approach other Jews?
Okay, so I do want to say one thing about like that, because, you know, I think that it's interesting to me that the people that had written to you, Erika, were about, you know, perhaps one of the examples you mentioned was about spirituality not necessarily being the obvious thing. So I would say that, and everyone's experience is so different, it's hard for me almost to imagine, right, like that experience of Judaism being void of spirituality in that environment, because there are so many incredible, unique beings within like a tapestry. That's what happens, I think, when we find, you know, when we do like this big brush stroke of an entire community, and decide that it's one thing or another, you know. So I think, like, in general, like if you meet like each individual, you'll find such a different experience. But my experience definitely was that there was a lot of diversity within that seemingly uniformity, and that is what made and makes our beauty in general. And what it means to me, like as your question goes, in terms of you know, every individual that we interact with, I think it goes back to that principle of loving thy fellow as yourself. It's you know, it doesn't say love every fellow that is like you. That's self-love, you know, like I like my values, and so I see it in other people and I'm like, oh yay, they celebrate the same values I do, so we could be friends, or we could see that beauty. That's not like actually what that's talking about, right? It's that beauty that lies within the diversity, not being afraid of those differences, not having an agenda for another person, like when you interact with them, not trying to manipulate or thinking that we know like the right way and like we know what's right for someone else or what have you, because the truth is none of us, you know, necessarily like have figured this life situation out. We're all like flying by the seat of our pants, you know. We're all trying to make the best choices that we can, and just like understanding that every human we interact with is so beautiful, and there's something so incredible to be celebrated about that. Just being in that presence without, you know, wanting to manipulate, change, you know, insert, what have you. So I guess to its core, that's some of that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so Erika, tell us what your thoughts are about it.
So I really love the idea of unity without uniformity, because having gone through my process of growing up not religious, becoming religious, and grappling with, okay, I believe what I'm doing is, you know, like the best possible thing, right? I love being like keeping mitzvot. I love Torah. I love learning Torah, right? And so what's so incredible is going through this maturation process of recognizing that like I have this very special thing and wonderful thing, and everyone else is looking for, right, for their connection and looking like to be the best person that they can be and doing the best with the tools that they have at the time, right? And so we all meet on different stages of our journeys, you know, and that has been for me the most amazing thing about being a part of Batsheva's organization, is working with these women who I see so much of myself in, because I, you know, like I was not blessed to learn Torah for the first 20 years of my life. And then when I learned it, I was like, this is the most amazing, incredible thing ever. And now, you know, I've been learning and I've been living this for a long time. And one of the greatest gifts is to also be able to share this with people who are not like me, right? And I'm not living in a bubble of people who are like me. I'm like, you know, like I said, we had a meeting the other week, and I was like, my 45 best friends over here that I went on this Israel trip with, you know, they're like, we're all different. We're all on different spectrums of observance, this and that and the other thing. But when we learn Torah together, when we connect about what's really important to us and our values and who we want to be and how we want to connect to Hashem, you know, like that, like they don't have to be like me. And having, like, I think that's like a maturity that I've seen in myself develop over time, because when I first became religious, it was like, this is right and I'm, you know, doing the right thing, right? And I think a lot of people get stuck in that because they're afraid of having the other person, like, they're doing their thing, and if they're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing, one of us is wrong, right? But that's not what Hashem wants for us, right? Like, one of the things that I'm like thinking about so much is how, like, we're in the 3 weeks, right? We're in this time where we are delving into how the Jewish people are not connected, and how they're, like, you know, sinas chinam, like this baseless hatred, and how disconnection from each other disconnects us from Hashem.
Well,
And
that's
so
what
many
Batsheva
people,
did her video about for Faces of Orthodoxy. That's the definition of evil.
right, exactly. Yes, I saw it was so beautiful, and it's so true, right? That, like, we're supposed to be connected to each other and loving each other and finding what to love about each other. That doesn't mean that we have to be the same and do the same things and wear the same head coverings and wear the same clothing. Like, there's so much to love about other Jews, other human beings, and if we look for that instead of looking for the differences and the things that, you know, divide us and the things that are incongruent, or the ways that we're better or they're worse or whatever it is, like that, that's not Judaism, right? Like, I really believe, like, at my core, we are, you know, we all have a Jewish soul, and it, like, you know, like, each of us gets to manifest in different ways, and all that we can do is, like, really love each other. And that was how I became religious, was because the rabbi and rebbitzin who I moved in with, there was no, like, finger shaking, and there was no, this is, you should be doing this, and, like, don't you know that you, like, you should, you know, you shouldn't be wearing that. Like, there was none of that. It was just, they saw me and they loved me and they appreciated me for who I was, and they didn't try to make me into anyone else. And that was how I was able to grow in my relationship with Hashem, because I saw what they, like, that they had this beautiful relationship, and I was like, I want that, right? And, like, and that is, like, that's the neshama, right? That's not, like, being beaten down. That's not any of those things. It's just seeing, like, oh, I have all of this potential that I, you know, that I want to express in this way. And yeah, that's, like, that's
I was
definitely
thinking
what I got.
exactly that when Batsheva was talking about this lack of agenda, and I was comparing that to your story, Erika, and your journey. And I was that Rebbitzin, you know, she wasn't, you should wear this or you can't wear that. She was just living her life and embracing you as a human being and being there to answer questions for you and being that person. And just by her being her, you were just observing her and saying, wow, this is what I've been wanting. You know, this is the mentor I've been looking for, but without trying. Like, that's what I love about it. That's
Yes, she
sincere.
really, it was not, there was no trying, there was no manipulation. Like, that was, she just lived a Torah life as a true Torah, like, Torah Jew, who just loved me as I was, and, like, saw my potential, and yeah, and was there for me. And, like, it was, yeah, that was it. That's, like, really all that we, if we could all do that for each other, what a different Jewish people we would be.
Thank you for tying in the 3 weeks, because this wasn't planned that this should be in the 3 weeks, but just the most apropos topic. So I'm glad we're keeping that in mind. If any of our audience members have a question, you can go ahead and put a question in the question box, that little question mark and that little icon at the bottom, and we'll try to get to them. Okay, so let's talk about, I do think that the Orthodox world suffers a bit from our acute awareness of the different types that reside within Orthodoxy, let alone the types of Jews that reside in the broader world. And we're, you know, we label people. We're into, you know, they go to this type of shul. She's that type of person. Can we be friends? What will people think?
Batsheva has a lot to say.
No, my heart, like, I felt like that heartbreak a little bit, like, again, because I want to share. It's funny, I didn't think about the story at all, but it happened on Tisha B'Av, actually. It was the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. There was a speech. The Boston Rebbe was my parents' Rebbe, and he was giving a speech. It was there was one of the big protests in Israel, apropos right now, you know, and there was a lot of discord. You know, again, something that we the Jewish people are quite familiar with. You know, and he was giving this passionate speech about unity and loving everyone and what happened all those years back. And he broke down crying. I remember where it was because it wasn't in his regular synagogue. He broke down crying, this old rabbi, like standing over there speaking, and he took off his shtreimel, it was Mil Shabbos, and he wore a white kippah, white knitted kippah underneath because he's Yerushalmi,
Right.
which is like a specific type of kippah that's worn. And at the time, the discord was between, I remember even the political like map then, it was many years ago, I don't want to date myself, but there was this discord between, as you were saying, like the different labels within and streams within Orthodoxy. And people were speaking negatively about people from his community who wore black velvet kippah, were speaking negatively about perhaps other kippah wearing, right? Which sounds so ridiculous as we speak. Like I'm like I cannot believe these words are even like exiting my mouth. Like, and he was crying hysterically and he said, I wear this type of kippah. I know you all think like that's the right one. I wear this kind, like it's the kind that you're like fighting against, you know, perhaps, you know, whatever that is. But he was saying, he's like, what is wrong with us? Like, what is wrong with us? Like, why does it matter? And I remember, like, I was young then. I remember when an impression it made. Again, this is in her note, you know, I grew up this is in a Haredi neighborhood, in a Haredi community. He was delivering the words that he was addressing were to a very, very insular Haredi community. Like, it wasn't like, so I think these big concepts and these ideas are things that are grappled with on a deep level and on an individual level and a communal level of the community. And you're right, like we struggle with it, and it's so beautiful that we're willing to struggle with it because it's complicated, and we humans tend to gravitate towards labels. They're easier, they're out, you know, we don't have to define ourselves. So yeah, I don't know, that's just
it's a good point that you make. Like, we as humans struggle with this, but I think, you know, we see this so much in the Orthodox world because we're so passionate about what we believe in. You know, as Orthodox Jews, it's you know, our, like, the Torah and philosophy, it just guides our entire way of life. Everything we do is surrounding it. And so people may do things differently than us, but because we each feel so strongly about what we do, that I think is the challenge. Is like, why does it have to be so selfish? Like, why does it have to be self-centered? Why can't we broaden or expand our horizons? And I particularly find this most troubling when it impacts, you know, like socially, like impacts how we expand our circles of friendships and exposure to other types of, again, we're only talking about Orthodox Jews right now. We're not even talking about the broader community. Right. You know what I mean? Erika, I'm curious your thoughts about the question.
So I feel very strongly that we vote with our feet, which is why I live in Atlanta.
Okay.
I'm very, very grateful and proud to live in a place that, like, our shul, although it has like become a little bit more homogenous, like originated as the Orthodox synagogue for all Jews. Right? That this is like, you know, in my children's classes, you know, there's a diversity of practice. There's a diversity of kashrus. There's a diversity of Shabbos observance. There's a diversity of hair covering, that we're not all the same, but we can still go to the same shul. We can still eat at each other's houses. Like, right. There is a lot more diversity here, and that was something that was very important to me and was a value for me when I was deciding where do I want to live, right? I speak to groups of girls, like high school girls, college, whatever, that kind of thing. So there was a traveling group of girls like Beis Yaakov from Brooklyn who came through Atlanta, and I spoke to them the other week. It was so fun.
Wow.
And one of the questions I got was, one of the girls said, like, what if I want a second earring?
Huh.
And she lives in Borough Park.
Right? Erika,
right?
Tell me what I should do.
It was so funny. So I said, like, I used to have a nose ring, right? And I, you know, like, and so I get that. And like in, you know, the Torah portion, it says that like Eliezer gave Rivka nose rings. What's the problem with nose rings, right? And, you know, you go to some Jewish communities and people wear nose rings. You go to some and they don't. And then you go to, right? Like, I have one of my best friends. She has like a second and a third hole, and she's like in her 40s. She's a super frum lady, reads Tehillim all the time. She's so amazing, right? That, like, when we get into these, right, when we get overly involved with our sects, S-E-C-T-S, it really does such a disservice to us. And at the same time, I do think it's special that like different people have their place, right? There's something about like going to a place that makes you feel special and connected, but there is a problem when other places aren't, like, are bad or wrong. So I think it's good to go places where you feel good, where you feel you belong, where you feel connected, where you connect to the rub, you connect to the people. Like, that's important. And that is something that, especially since COVID, apparently, like, the OU has been, like, seeing more and more and more, people are gravitating towards small and intimate and connected. And, like, so our shul, which is a big shul, is, like, working to integrate to that, you know, to that ideal that, you know, that is coming about. And that, so I think it's very important for us to go where we feel comfortable, but also to be able to go where not everyone is like us, and to still see, like, we're all Jews and we're all reaching towards the same place in our own special way. I think, you know, you have to be able to have that nuance, and that's, Judaism is about nuance, if anything, right? Like, just like what I was saying in my video about spirituality and how we are spiritual people because we take the physical and we make it spiritual. So we live in the physical world, so it's very easy to get bogged down by all of that physicality, right? So we have to be very careful as Jewish people, because we're in the physical world, because we're so involved, because we have shuls and we have boards and we have, you know, money campaigns and this and that and the other thing. Like, it's so easy to to go astray. So you have to be very, very thoughtful about how you are thinking about other Jewish people and about yourself, and like letting go of the rights and wrongs and really seeing people as more holistic, as opposed to, you know, that the black and white mentality, right?
And I think for those of us who are parents, like, you know, Batsheva's story taught us this is a learned thing, you know, because we are automatically going to, as human beings, maybe be gravitating to people that are like us, but it's a skill and it's a value that needs to be taught at home, to embrace diversity and to be less judgmental. I know, interestingly, my daughter just graduated from high school, and their senior trip, they took the girls to Square, which is New Square in Williams. Is it not Williamsburg? New Square.
Muncie, my family actually practiced, like, they were very close to Square Rebbe before, like, yeah.
So she came home and she was on such a high, and she was sharing, you know, the experiences. They went Friday night to the Tish, you know, came home at 2 a.m, Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night. One of the Rebbetzins made a malava malka and gave them, like, beautiful gift packages with homemade food packages. I mean, you know, the hospitality. I myself, when I was 20 years old, I took a trip to Tash, to the Tash of a Rebbe in Montreal, and, like, outside of Montreal. These are experiences, and we should have them on the right and the left, I think, to just be exposed, because bias and prejudice comes from lack of exposure and lack of actually meeting human beings, right?
Yeah.
Batsheva, let's hear.
100%. No, 100%. I love what you just said. I think that's everything that sums it all up.
Yeah, I was so happy to hear my daughter sharing, and things also that we may be judgmental about. Like, they have certain extreme, what I think are extreme practices. You know what I'm saying?
It's not what I want to do, and it's not what I believe I need to do, but I respect and appreciate. And I think what you said about people on this side and on this side, because I think each of us is biased maybe to one side or the other, where we're willing to defend or extend our compassion and acceptance. And I think it's really important to, like, on both sides of, like, the whatever that spectrum is, and even that's a linear thinking, and I feel like is limiting. But yes, like, to look both directions and make sure that we're extending that love and compassion.
Right.
I just wanted to say that this whole idea that you've shared so much in your story, I found incredibly refreshing. I've learned so much from you. I really have. So thank you. Yeah, Erika, what did you want to say?
So I was going to say, you know, when you're on the highway, the people going faster than you are lunatics, and the people going slower than you are grandmas, right? You know, it's like, we have this, it is innate within us to believe whatever we are doing is correct, right? And so it takes a tremendous amount of thoughtfulness. It really does. And I also love what Batsheva says, like, on both sides, need to, like, have, you know, more respect and more love for each other on both sides of the spectrum. And sometimes it's, you know, like, it tends easier on one side than the other. And so, for instance, so I'm a doula. One of my many other hobbies in life is that I'm a birth coach. I had the most amazing experience a couple of months ago. There was a family, so there was a mother and father. The mother was pregnant with her second child. she could not give birth naturally in New York because of like a bunch of different complications. But Dr. Tate, here we go. Here's Dr. Tate from Atlanta, said he could help this woman give birth naturally. So this couple from Borough Park who had literally never left New York moved to Atlanta. And I got a call from, oh my gosh, Flatbush girl. What's her name? I don't remember her name, but Flatbush girl. I got a call from her. She's like, are you a doula in Atlanta? I said, yes, I am. And she said, I have a job for you.
Wow.
And I helped this amazing, very Hasidic couple give birth in Atlanta. Like they must have felt like aliens. Like, I'm sure these people, you know, like, wouldn't, like, we never would have met any other way. It was just such a wild, incredible experience. But I got to talk to them, like, in the midst of them, like, you know, before birth, after birth, those kind of things. And the mother is a principal at a Beis Yaakov. Like, I got to meet these like absolutely incredible, amazing Jews who never in a million years would we have crossed paths. And we like fell in love with each other. Like, the husband was like gushing about like how I was a like shaliach from Hashem, and like this like it was such a beautiful, special experience where I really felt connected to the whole of the Jewish people, right? That like that when we have those opportunities to be brought together, that we have to take them, and we have to really hold on to that and realize like, oh my gosh, we are so different, we lead such different lives, but at the same time there is this common core, and you know, and I was able to be there for them in their time of need, and it was a really, really special experience.
What an honor. Beautiful. All right, well, our time has come to an end. Is there any message that you would like to leave our listeners? This, by the way, if you missed or you only saw a portion, this will be put up on our Faces of Orthodoxy YouTube channel, so you can revisit it and share it from there. Any final words?
Batsheva, you want to go?
Sorry, I just was going to say thank you to you, Alex, for creating this platform. And that's really what swayed me. Like, you know, I started in the beginning, it was hard for me to like go on something that has labels attached to them.
Yeah.
But I think what you're doing over here is exposing faces, as the name implies. You're helping people meet people that they wouldn't necessarily interact with on a daily basis because it's from all over the world. And that really does, as you said so eloquently, when we don't meet people, we can have like these judgments or prejudgments or what have you. But when we get to know the humans behind those, you know, labels, we get to like really love them because they are incredible. So I think you're doing something so beautiful in sharing one person at a time. And I'm grateful to be over here. I just want to say one sentence to summarize what we just spoke about right now, which I think is exactly what you're doing. In the physical experience, it's very limiting. So either I'm right or you're wrong. In Hashem's experience, in the soul experience, we have space for everyone. It's limitless, literally, it's infinite. So I think you asked the question at some point during this half hour, you asked, why do we do this? Why do we gravitate? And I think the answer is we get bogged down by that physical experience, and we forget that we're these souls that are expansive, that can hold space for it all.
Ah, beautiful. This holding space idea that you talk about so often. Very beautiful. Very deep. Woo. Okay, Erika, you're next.
Okay, mine's not as deep, but I do think important. First of all, thank you so much, Alex. This is an incredibly beautiful platform, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this project. What I would like to say to Jewish people on all parts of the spectrum is to learn with each other. I used to work for Partners in Torah. There's also Ura Torah Mates. There are, you know, like in your community, there are probably like amazing opportunities to learn with other Jews who are not like you. And I highly suggest it will do something for you Jewishly. If you're teaching, it will help you to become re-inspired. If you're a student, it will help you to feel inspired. I believe so much in this, in our ability to learn together. And even if you are not so learned, and even if you feel like, what do I have to give? We all have so much to give. You can read a book together and go line by line and just connect and talk about different ideas. I feel like that's so important, and that for me has inspired me in my journey and has added so much to my life Jewishly. So
definitely, it's a great suggestion also to get to know another person around the experience of learning Torah is so beautiful. Connecting to Hashem, it's a beautiful suggestion. And also you can follow Faces of Orthodoxy. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you both, Batsheva and Erika. It's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you. Learned so much.
Good night.
Have a great night, everybody. Be well.